It's been a minute since I did a overtime session. Um, Maybe not by choice. I just ain't had much to say. but yeah. So I guess this is an overtime session. Um, this multi-cam situation that I got going on is temporary, y'all. This is probably the last week. I rented a cam for a video shoot I had and stuff like that. And so, one thing I really want to kind of encourage y'all in terms of making it happen is, a lot of times you see people, maybe even myself, doing these things, and you might wonder like how do you manage your time? Like that's a question I get asked all the time. How do you manage your time, or how do you make it happen? Um, with all the different things, like people that know some of the other stuff that I have going on top of working a 9 to 5, all this other stuff. Um, how do you kind of balance that? How do you make it happen? And one of the answers, or the most common responses that I give, and this is kind of just personal revelation about making it happen. I think when God has called you to something, it's hard to say no to God. And my sister Ebony said that in terms of women in ministry too. It's hard to say no to God when He's called you to something, and you know that He has called and gifted you for a purpose, for a time such as this, as we like to say in church culture. But I think if God gives you a vision, it's your responsibility to execute that vision, that mission, that thing. And if it really is tied to your purpose, you will make it happen. Because the fear of the Lord is not just about reverence in terms of Him being the Savior, Lord and Savior. It's also about knowing that He equipped me to do these things. And so I must be obedient to the fact that He's equipped me to do said things and make it happen in spite of me, despite the challenges that I face, despite what is going on in my life. Let's make it happen, right? Trusting that the God in me is sufficient. His grace is sufficient, right? And so, for me, in terms of making it happen with, the podcast or YouTube now and all the different things, it's just truly knowing that and growing confident in, God called me to speak, to do these things. And does it get hard? Yes, it does. I was contemplating quitting this. And I'm not talking about starting out, I'm talking about a few weeks ago. Um, but the Lord just keeps pressing upon my heart to share these things, and there are certain conversations, difficult conversations, that I want to begin having, and I'm wrestling with God as I wrestled with God about YouTube, about a podcast, about preaching, and all these different things. But eventually, I'll be at a space where I truly submit that over to God and say, these are the difficult conversations that we have to have as a church, as a body, as believers, right? And so, but in terms of making it happen, whatever God has gifted you to do, whatever He's pressing upon your heart to do, to start, to complete, just do it. Make it happen. Reach out to the right people. Find those connections. Do the investigative work. You may not be able to bring it to fruition immediately. It may not happen this year. It may not happen next year. Sorry. But make it happen. Start doing the investigative work, the research required, all the different things that it takes to complete this work. Start doing those things. Start investigating what would it take for me to accomplish this thing, right? When it's a God-given thing, it's hard to say no to God. And so this podcast every week is my yes. Is my yes to God, right? Until He tells me to shift. And there, like I said, there's some different conversations I want to start having, because I think there's a level of depth that I don't see in terms of mainstream media, at least in mainstream ministry. Not all, but some. I think there's a level of depth that is missing, and that's a conversation for another time. But all this is to say, make it happen. Um, yeah, so I appreciate everyone that tunes in, everyone that likes, shares, comments, encourages. Encourage the creatives that you support, that you like, that you love, that you listen to. Encourage them because sometimes it's hard, despite the likes, despite the comments, despite you know doing things for the kingdom. Sometimes it is hard. Um, Pressing on. Even the business owners, the ministers, the pastors, the leaders, encourage them in their walk, in their journey as they elevate and help you elevate. Encourage them to keep making it happen. So that's going to do it for this overtime session. This was spontaneous. This is the raw Chae Cole, even though the podcast episodes is raw as well. But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in on YouTube, man. Sorry I haven't given any overtime sessions into the thoughts and stuff like that. But yeah, that's going to do it for this overtime session. I'm your host, Chae Cole. Till next time, peace.